All right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Board of Selectmen's call to order March 30th at 6 p.m. I'm going to take a roll call. Ed?
Here.
Sheila?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
And I'm here. I'm going to read a little bit of stuff here so you guys can understand what's taking place. Good evening, everyone. This is a virtual Board of Selectmen's meeting. We are using the Zoom conferencing format. The agenda on the town's website has the information needed for the public to participate by Zoom conferencing format or telephone. If you wish to participate through Zoom, you can Zoom meeting. The meeting ID is 563-035-627. That is 563-035-627. You can also dial in by phone on the East Coast at 929-205-6099 or in the rest of the United States at 301-715-8592. You'll be asked to enter the meeting ID number, which is 563-035-627, followed by the pound sign. If you're conferencing in by phone or through Zoom and watching this on cable or YouTube, you must turn down your volume. You'll have nothing but feedback. As always, you can watch us on the television on channel 1301, stream us on YouTube at Kennebunkport Television. During the meeting, only the selectmen and the town manager will be on screen with audio connected. All other participants will be blacked out and audio muted, except when the board solicits public input. I ask that the public take turns when talking, allow others an opportunity to talk once you have made your point, and identify yourself when talking. We appreciate your support and patience as we rework our public meeting process to allow for public input while we carry on necessary town businesses. So right now, I'm going to ask the chair to open their meeting on the Beach Advisory Committee. Richard? Richard, can you hear me?
He's muted.
Can you unmute?
He's unmuted.
Okay. There you go, Richard. If you'd call your board to order, and take a roll call, please.
Joanne Guston.
Here.
Kate Bauer-Burke.
Here.
Jim Overhill.
Here.
Bob Sherman. Bob Sherman.
Here.
Sheila Matthews-Ball.
Here.
John Dykstra.
Here.
Jennifer Wasserman.
Here.
And Richard Driver. We have
I can't.
Richard, you're coming through very faintly. Maybe you could have a volume there, or just be sure to speak up, please.
Is that better?
Better.
Okay.
All right, you all set? If you've taken your vote yet?
Yes. All 8 members are present.
Okay. Okay, tonight item 2 is discussion regarding the closure of the beaches. Board of Selectmen. Would you like to start it off, or would you like to start it off? I don't see Lori anywhere either. Lori, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. So,
Yep. So I'll just tee it up. How about that?
Yep.
So some of the questions have arisen about whether or not the beaches should be closed to the public. The beaches south of us have closed to the public from Kittery, York, Gunkwit, Wells, and Kennebunk took action Friday to close effective on Saturday, which means that our beaches have been called into question whether we should close as well. The ability to close the beach is under the beach use ordinance, and that requires consultation with the beach committee. In terms of beach safety, we have had police officers checking on the beach on a daily basis. We also put signage up on Thursday of last week to remind people about social distancing and some of the consequences if people do not social distance. Reports I get from most people are that people seem to be obeying the rules. I think the concerns have been that if the weather gets nicer and more people come up, that could change.
If I may make a comment,
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I think at the moment, we are not experiencing any problems at the beach, from what I understand. The people who have gone down and walked the beach, the police, they all find that everybody is doing the distancing that they should be doing. And I hate to close the beach when we really have, at this point, no problem. I think we will certainly have a time, if this should change and the weather gets better and we wind up with too many people, then we can make a change in our policy. But I think for the time being, I think we're good.
I agree with Sheila. You know, people have been really good about doing what the governor has said and what the government has said. And people can get out. You can't just be locked up. And as long as people are at the beach and they're keeping their distance from one another, I don't see a problem with it. But in the future, you know, that may change. But for today, I'm pretty good with leaving things the way they are.
How about you, Mike? Mike? Pat, how about you? Oh, Mike,
Yes.
you there? Yeah.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I've been down there every day. And the only time that I was a little bit concerned was last Sunday, but there weren't a lot of groups congregating, but there were almost, I would say 65, 70, maybe 85% of the cars were from out of state. They weren't our local people, I don't think. But I didn't see any problems. And the same thing this week. I've been down, today was a disaster because there weren't very many people as the weather. But I haven't seen many problems. But I can tell you that I was down, Jen and I did every single beach Sunday, starting down in Ogunquit and coming north. And there are still people, even though they've got their ban on, there's still people there. They've closed the parking lot at Perkins Cove. They've closed the parking lot at Mother's Beach. They haven't closed Gooch's Beach, but they don't allow any parking. So every beach, the only problem was Perkins Cove. There were 20 parking spots on the channel side of Perkins Cove. There were 18 Massachusetts and New York cars there, and there were a lot of people. That's the only place that we saw a lot of congregating. Didn't see it anywhere else because the police were there at Kennebunk. The police were there in force at Perkins Cove for the most part, and the beaches of York. So, you know, I didn't see any problems up and down the beaches.
How about you, Pat?
Yeah, I also went around to check Goose Rock's beach and this Colony Beach as well. And as you pointed out, there were people there that were behaving. At Colony Beach, when I went yesterday, there was a dozen cars there, and 10 of them were from Maine, or they had Maine license plates. I don't know where in Maine they came from. People were obeying the social distance rules. Few people were walking their dogs, you know, and it was a very civil situation. And as long as they continue to abide by the rules and realize that if they abuse them, then we're going to have to end up shutting them down. And that's, everybody has to understand that.
Well, I've been down, thanks, Pat. I've been down there 7 or 8 times, and I haven't seen any big problems whatsoever. Saturday, I think I counted 22 or 23 cars. 10 of them were from Maine. And I believe there was 9 or 10 from Massachusetts and a couple from other states. Everybody was walking along the beach. They were separated. They were doing a good job. Sunday, I counted, of course, it was raining. I counted 3 cars. So I don't think, right at this time, I don't think that we need to do anything, but we're going to have to put something in place, hopefully, that we'll be able to do something. Did you want to talk about that, Laurie? Hello? Laurie?
Yeah, I was just unmuting myself, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Would you
Takes
like?
me a minute.
Okay.
So in terms of regulations, certainly I think you want to hear from the beach committee, but there are 2 regulations I sent the selectmen and the beach committee this afternoon. They are basically very similar, and one would close the beach and the other would give the authority to the town manager and chair of the board in consultation to close the beach if circumstances warranted. So it would allow us to take steps and phases in the process rather than just a closure.
Okay. So, Richard, do you want to ask your committee members if they have anything to say, input of anything whatsoever?
Sure. Let me start off at first. Can you hear me, Alan?
Not very well. Can you? It's pretty low.
Not really, but maybe it's the mic. Let me switch mics and see.
No, can't hear it. You're better with the other one.
Okay. Just start out. Yes, there have been a limited number of people at the beach, and many are social distancing. But there was at least one group of teenagers, and they don't social distance at all. That is one problem. The other is we have at Goose Rocks now more people at this time of year than we usually do. Snowbirds coming back, places being rented this time of year by out-of-staters, and we have Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New York license plates in the driveways. So that's a concern in terms of the mingling of people on the beach. In terms of the 2 regulations that were sent to us today, Laurie, could you tell me what would be the criterion for closing the beach as you see it?
I think that the criteria would be looking at the numbers of people on the beach and whether or not people are able to maintain social distancing. It also might have to do with recommendations from the state government and in terms of the number of cases and how that situation changes.
The problem, as I see it, is we're in this situation because we weren't proactive for 2 months.
Right.
And I want to make sure that we in Kennebunkport are proactive. We don't wait until there is an actual problem, that before the problem arises, when we see that more people are arriving here, that the beach and the parking on Kings Highway are prohibited.
Then it's too late, in my opinion. Why? This is a pandemic. You can't wait until it's too late and then put in the rule.
That's John Dykstra. John,
Thank you.
are you saying you wanted it, think it should be closed now?
Yeah, I feel that just as you had said, I think quite well, that in a case of a pandemic, in a case of some kind of a communicable disease, you need to be proactive and take measures so that you don't have that initial transmission start. Because once it gets going, the horse has left the barn.
Richard Schreiber, John, I agree with you. And my own preference would be to close the beach now. But I hear the selectmen saying they're not in favor of it, and we're only advisory.
Well, I understand, I'm advising.
Can I say something?
Oh,
Hello?
yes.
Hi, yeah, this is Jenny Wasserman. I'm on the committee, Beach Advisory Committee. I'm also on the beach, beachfront. I guess there's a couple of comments I have. I certainly agree that right now it's not been a problem whatsoever. I wonder if there would be a consideration. Goose Rock's beach is a very, very wide beach in low tide. And I'm wondering if there would be any consideration for a compromise where people are not allowed on the beach on either hour surrounding high tide. But in low tide, I mean, you'd have to be hard pressed to make yourself 6 feet to people. There's a lot of space. And the other concern I have is people are going to get out and walk. People need to walk. And if the beach is closed, especially in low tide, then everyone will be on the sidewalks. You'll have people more crowded than if they were on the beach. So I don't know if closing the beach is actually going to solve the problem or potentially even worsen the problem. Thank you.
Can I jump in there too?
Sure.
I agree with Jen that I again have been down on the beach every day. My dogs have gotten more walks than they've ever in their life, but I have not seen a problem down there. We saw, as Richard said, one group of young people on Saturday, about 8 of them who I think were trying to social distance because they had themselves spread out in a line right across the beach, but their idea of distance was like 2 feet. So, and my husband and I both chatted with them about it. They couldn't have been nicer, and they did try then, as they continued their walk, to do the right thing. I think it's also very helpful at this time for people who have young children at home. I know there are not that many kids who live there year round, but I've seen more family groups down there, and as children are out of school, it's a valuable resource for parents to give kids a place to get off some of the steam. So I agree with Jen that I think the key here is the high tide area. I think it's inevitable at some point we're going to have to close the beach just because there will be so many more people back here, literally at Goose Rocks, and there will be many more people who figure out we're still open, let's go there. I would like to see that staved off as long as possible. Right now, the weather is sort of on our side. And, if we can put it off until we have more people here and great warmer weather. So I'm in favor of giving, like provisional authority to say, go ahead and close it when you need to. But I'm also curious to get a little bit more input from Lori or whoever as to, how we say close the beach. But Jen's point is my point too. If we close the beach itself, does that mean we also have to close Kings Highway, as I gather they've done and made the sidewalk, which is much wider than our sidewalk along Kings Highway over in Kennebunk, off limits. So I think if we close the beach, and the only place, certainly people are going to maybe want to walk closer to the beach, hear the sound of the ocean, etc. How do we deal with that problem too, unless we go the whole route like Kennebunk has? Does anybody?
That's a good question for the chief. Chief, are you there? Chief?
Yes, sir, I am.
Did you hear Kate's question?
I did. I think the only issue that we would have on Kings Highway is there are some folks that have driveways on Kings Highway depending on where the position is, and they will have traffic back and forth. So To block off all of Kings Highway might be difficult. If you put it to local traffic only, then people have the interpretation that local traffic is, I'm a resident of Kennebunkport and I can drive around these signs. So sometimes you don't accomplish what you want.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
I'm concerned if you close the beach, if those of us who live on Pier Road, if you came over here during the day, you would see a really lot of traffic, people walking on our sidewalks that are only on one side and not adequate on the other side. So there's a lot more traffic here on Pier Road and the other day on Ocean Avenue than there has been in a long time. There's a lot of people walking everywhere. So if we close the beach, I mean, Pier Road's a great place to walk, and we don't mind at all. And but I think once you get there's just no play. There's only one sidewalk. It's not wide. It's people are walking in the street, and what they are doing though is when they see people coming on the sidewalk, they'll coming the other direction. They cross the street, and almost invariably they cross the street or do something to distance themselves, and somebody's going to get hit soon. I mean, it's the traffic on Pier Road is heavy, and almost every car that's been coming down here the last few days have been out of state. And
Yeah, Mike, I was down on Pier Road several times on Sunday morning, and there were a lot more people out, and I didn't recognize a lot.
Same here, because there's regulars, but now there's regular. But there is an Ocean Avenue. I'm concerned that if you close the beach, they're all going to want to walk. They all want to walk somewhere. They got to get out. And I agree, but I also agree with what John Dykstra says, that somewhere along the way we got to be proactive. But how do you choose a beach, and how do you choose a street, and what do we do? The only way you can do it fairly is to say nobody goes out, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Sheila, do you want to say something?
Yeah, you heard what I said at the beginning. I still feel the same way.
Well, this is how I'm looking at it. I'd like to leave it like it is, and I know the chief and the police officers go down there regularly, and we all go down there, and if we see anything that is going to cause problems, that we could go ahead and limit some of the parking. That would be another step to do. We could take 50 or 60 parking spots away, or 70 or whatever, if the chief thinks that he should do. And then we could try that, and that would limit a lot of people. You know, if you limit the parking, you limit people on the beach. So
now, you know what's going to happen, Alan? People are going to start looking for places on the side roads.
There's no parking on the side roads.
And what I'm saying is, then you're going to wind up, I don't know. I think it becomes more convoluted.
Well, it's better than closing the beach, I feel, right at this time. If we had to do that, then we'd have to close the beach if we couldn't take care of it. If the chief couldn't take care of it, he'd have to close it. We'd have to close the beach. But I would like to see us. Yes, ma'am. You've got your hand raised up.
So I just want to make sure if people don't have the chat function on Zoom, that they do. We have a lot of people who are leaving comments. And so I think it would be good to let the beach committee have some, I don't know if anybody else from the beach committee wants to speak, and then we could look at the comments and open it up to the public to get some feedback.
Okay. That's fine.
I'm not at the beach right now, but if I were, you would see a car with an out-of-state license plate, because I'm from Massachusetts. In talking with a number of the people down there, because I've asked my friends about this who are down there, and no one yet has seen a problem. If we have the ability to reevaluate this even on a weekly basis, then I think we should. You take the beach away, you're going to consolidate all the people to walking down the sidewalks and down the side roads. I walk every day 2 to 3 miles at my home in Massachusetts, and I have never seen so many people out and walking. Family groups, people with dogs, and the same thing is going to happen down there. The beach at least allows you to spread out a little bit more.
I agree wholeheartedly.
At this point,
I'd like to see,
I'd rather not see it closed, but I'd rather see it monitored closely. And if it gets unsafe due to other beaches closing and we become the most popular destination, then we have the ability overnight on a dime to close the beach and take care of it.
Good. Yep.
Anybody else in the public that want to speak?
This is Paul Hogan.
Lori, can you see that? I can't see the, there's somebody just.
Jennifer
texting in.
Jennifer Como wanted to speak.
Okay,
Has his hand up.
No, I'm not.
you're,
They told you to go. I'm sorry, I earlier,
Lori,
I would like to see the beach kept open and not have parking, so the beach could be used by those of us who live here.
I can't do that.
we can't do that.
An infinite
That's-
amount of money on a lawsuit that we finally won. And I don't think that limiting the beach access to people who only live and can walk from their homes would be a very popular idea with the rest of the people in town.
But Ed, we could limit it to people who have season beach passes from 2019. And this is Paul Hogan, by the way.
Yeah, I know, Paul. Hi, Paul.
We don't want to open up town offices and issue new permits, but you could say no parking. I think it would be kind of important to send a message that the beach is only open for people who live here or are staying here, and not for everybody from who's driving out on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
And
You're
the
not
way
gonna-
you would-
You're
the
not
way
going
you
to be
would-
able to regulate that. How are you going to
Well, the way
regulate
you would,
something like
I think you could regulate it by saying only last year's season passes can park there, and all of the.
And I can't go there because I don't have a beach pass because I don't go to the beach in the summer because it's too busy to go down there. I'd rather go down in the off season. So I don't have a parking pass. You're
Got it.
saying I can't go, or somebody else who perhaps purchased a home here in town after the season and doesn't have a beach pass. It either needs to stay open to everybody or it needs to close. I think at this point, those are the only two options. Talking about, well, I've heard people talk about, you can't go down at high tide. It makes a lot of sense, but in practical terms, as you all know, I'm a commercial lobsterman. I don't even always know when high tide is, and I probably should. So how is the general public going to go down there? You take your time, you get your kids in your car, and you go down, or whomever, and you want to get out of your house, and you get down there and it's high tide. Well,
You got two of them on, and I think I'm also.
Bob Sherman's had his hand up. Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple of quick observations. Number one, I can tell you that I've watched people walk the beach every day, and the best time for walking is within a few hours of low tide. The beach is at its absolute widest. People can safely distance and continue to enjoy the beach. So if we could steer people to use the beach during or near the low tide areas, it would be a terrific place, very safe. I noticed people today are walking. Most of them are walking and moving and staying away from each other. There is no congestion. There is no sitting on the beach trying to get a tan or trying to get people together. It is literally, most people here walking their dogs or their kids. It's a pretty good thing to watch, and that's how it's functioning at the moment. And the other thing we can do to kind of encourage people is to be in motion at all time. If you're sitting around, standing, talking with someone, you're sort of, violating your testing the social etiquette appropriate during these conditions. I also think one of the things we could do is limit parking to be just on Kings Highway. Take it off a Dyke Road, take it off a New Biddeford Road, and we'll limit the number of people who will actually come in and use the beach and put in no parking along the two ancillary streets as getting access to the beach as well. I will point out that many people have started to occupy our homes on the beach. The couple next door just came in from New Zealand and Australia because of all the junk over there. They're sort of staying in quarantining themselves for the moment. They're not the only ones. There are other people who come here just to rest, and I think they really want to be here, but they don't want to
come out and do anything to anybody else as well. I'm suggesting that we do this on a possibly a month basis or a few weeks basis, and we don't commit to the whole rest of the time, but for sure for the rest of at least in February or through February, March, and relook again and see if we need to modify anything. But I think these kind of things will make this doable, and people can function under those conditions.
Okay, so my problem is the same as Ed's, is about how are you going to regulate high tide and low tide. A lot of people just don't understand it to begin with, but I am in favor of limiting parking if we need to.
Okay.
That's how I'm looking at it. I would hate to close the beach right now.
Yep.
I'd like to see it stay like it is, being monitored, and then if there's a problem, take away some parking. And then if that doesn't work, you'd rather what, Sheila?
I would rather start with keeping the beach open.
Right,
and
I agree.
Then if there's a problem, then we stop, then we deal with within the low tide period. I think that might be our first step instead of limiting the parking. Right. This way, people can go out on the beach and more people can walk. But
not everybody knows what low tide is, believe it or not.
Right.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll bet you they look it up if they're not out on the beach.
No, that won't work.
Alan, can I speak?
I'm just saying, instead of limiting the parking, you're still going to get 50 cars there, you know, no matter what you do. But I think where we're at this point should be, should we meet on a weekly basis and review everything on a weekly basis and then decide?
May I ask a question? Couldn't you place
who's talking? I can't.
This is Mark Gallagher. Couldn't you place a sign on both entrances of Goose Rock's beach letting people know when low tide was?
Changes every day, every hour.
Yeah, I know, but we have that mobile thing that the police have. You know how they give you your speed limit?
Yeah.
You do.
That mobile monitor.
Which end of the beach you're gonna put it on?
Wouldn't we be able to put it at the top of the beach and say no beach from 10 to 12 today? Something like that.
So.
And besides, we can cross that bridge when it comes. I'm just saying it's something that we could look into.
Yeah. Low tide, high tide isn't going to work, Sheila. It won't. That's my personal opinion, because the people are going to come down there and they'll think, well, what about when it's half tide? They're going to look at that and they're going to think it's low tide.
So not also the same every time.
So, but with me, I just would like to take that step approach, keep it open like it is now, and then if we have a problem, let the chief take away parking. And if it's more of a problem, then close the beach. That would be later on, probably when it gets warmer and closer to the summertime. That's how I'm looking at it. I don't want to close the beach. Laurie, you're up.
I think it might be time to open it up to the public. I don't think it's been clear. So can I just read through some of these chat comments for everybody?
Sure.
There's quite a few of them. I'll just briefly summarize them. People are asking about banning parking. Can we ban out-of-state car parking?
Only in our dreams.
Yep. So parking bans. People want to hear from Chief Sanford. Ban parking, including New Biddeford Road, Dyke Road, and General Store. People are commenting that sometimes when you have an out-of-state plate, doesn't mean you don't belong here. Ban parking in short-term rentals. What about hiking trails in other parts of the state? What about grocery stores? What about other public places in town? Some discussions about the tides and whether or not people could only walk at low tide, as was previously discussed. Again, more comments on parking. Don't allow out-of-staters, short-term rentals. I think, part of this is, there are things that we don't have authority to ban that people are suggesting that we might do. Talked about reducing the number of parking spots. Can we have a group patrol the beach like we do for the endangered birds? More limiting parking. Can we post a sign that lets people know about tides? People need to get outside. The beach is an important piece to people's mental wellness. I've heard that a lot over the last week. And how important it is to have a place to go where you can get some distance. Talking about the weekends. Paul is noting that weekends tend to be more of a problem than during the week. Who is going to enforce this low tide, high tide? Should we continue to reevaluate? Some people are going back and forth and they haven't had a problem. They've been using the beach. So I don't know if you just want to open it up to the public, make sure that people identify themselves and be respectful of, not talking over each other.
Can I ask one question before we quite do that?
Go ahead.
Again, this kind of Kate Burke, sorry. That kind of goes back to the question I asked before. And if soon we close the beach, and what are the other beaches? I mean, how do we enforce it? If somebody's out there and kind of says, tough, I want to walk the beach, does the chief or one of the police officers come and do what? Can you just give me a little idea of?
Chief, I guess you're up on that question.
Again, I think it's an education piece. We can ask very nicely, but legally, if somebody's looking for me to summons or arrest somebody, I don't have any legal authority to do that.
If this were to be passed as some sort of an ordinance under the beach use agreement, would you then?
If we had some kind of alteration of the beach use agreement, I would be able to probably issue a civil summons. But again, it's not, they could take that civil summons like most people will do with their parking ticket violation they get down there and just say, fine, I'm going to stay on the beach and I'm going to pay my fine later on,
Okay.
It's an option, but yeah, I mean.
I think that, what we need to focus on is what is the message we're sending to the public. So certainly we would work with our attorney to do the best we could to enforce it. But, we always work with education and with public notice about why we're doing the things that we're doing. But there's always a certain percentage of people who might have another focus in mind.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to open this up for a public comment. If there's anybody out in the public, just a second.
This is a member of the Beach Advisory.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Alan, I'm a member of the Beach Advisory Council, and I have not had a chance to talk yet. I would like to be able to do that.
Go ahead.
Alan, this is Jim Mulvihill.
You're in a bad spot. You got a lot of background noise.
We can't hear you.
I'm all by myself.
Everybody needs to try to mute.
Okay, so to the general public, your microphones have been unmuted, and you need to mute them.
I put my 2 cents in.
Okay, so David, can you mute people and let Jim Mulvihill speak? Mulvihill is on the. Yep, so mute. So David, I need you to mute everyone but Jim Mulvihill, which is at 8606.
Coronavirus cases in the U.S. continue to climb. During a conference
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make, as a member of the Beach Advisory Council, a couple of observations. The reason there's a lot of different license plates here is it's almost like Patriots Day. A lot of people up here are people who, whether they live in New York or elsewhere, own the houses here, and they're not just renting. They're up here fleeing from where they were, and that's why there's all the difference in license plates. There's a number of people on the west end that are up and never come up, but they own the houses and they're not renting it. Second, I think Kate's observation earlier is one we really need to be concerned about, because people figure out things, and people will wind up, if we're the only place left open, or one of the few in the southern third of Maine, people are going to come here increasingly, and they're going to find ways to do it, and that's just human nature, and they will do it. If I happen to agree very strongly, I have just enough knowledge in some of this area to be a little dangerous, I guess, but I happen to be strongly in agreement with John Dykstra's early comments. I think we need to be proactive, and we need to close the beach. And I know that's a minority opinion. If we don't do it, and we grant provisional authority to, with all due respect to the chair of the Selectmen and to Lori, I think there need to be some criteria established in advance for the application of that authority, or some commitments that, as someone suggested, we'll keep meeting every 10 to 15 days on this whole thing. And the final question I have is, what about other areas of town? Except for the people who earn a living at the Cape Porpoise Pier as lobstermen, that's just as crowded. We went down there on Saturday and Sunday. There were a lot of people there and a lot of cars. And so I think there needs to be some consideration to equal treatment or equal opportunity to other areas of the town that may, I won't say they are, but may provide similar challenges if we're attempting to hold whatever position we want to hold. Thank you for listening. That's it.
To public comment. Okay, I'm going to open this up.
Alan, this is Bob Sherman.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. It just seems to me that Alan and Lori have put forward a very reasonable plan, which is to keep the beach open for now, to monitor what's going on, and as necessary, along with the chief, to take the appropriate steps to limit access if necessary, parking if necessary. That sounds to me to be the most reasonable answer right now. It allows us to keep the beaches open immediately, which many people have said on this call that there is not an issue right now, and I agree with that. I live here on the beach, and then allows Alan and Lori to take the appropriate steps. So that's what I would vote for.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on the Beach Advisory Committee that would like to say something before I turn this over to public comment?
Alan, this is Bob Sherman. I had one question for John. I understand that the Conservation Trust is open. That is, their paths are open as an alternative way for people to enjoy this part of Maine. And I wondered is that correct? And if so, would we be interested in making people aware that there is an alternative place for them to walk?
I wouldn't know about that. Who'd you ask the question to?
John.
John, okay. John, go ahead. Your mic's not on.
Yeah, it is. It should be.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
I can answer that question, Bob. Both the Conservation Trust, they've been very busy. The paths have been very busy, and the area up by Jim Steele, those paths have been very busy too.
This is Paul Hogan. The only problem is on the trust properties, you can't social distance at all. They're very narrow paths,
That's right.
less than 3 feet wide. You cannot pass anybody on a single path. It's like walking in a grocery store. You can't be safe walking next to someone in a grocery store aisle. You can't social distance. So the trusts are off limit as a practical matter if you're following the rules.
You're absolutely right, Paul.
Well, I guess we've jumped into public comment already. So anybody else have anything to discuss?
Well, the only thing I would like to comment on, Alan, is I couldn't agree with the Board of Selectmen more. I think you people have reviewed the issues, decided upon a problem. The one issue that I would suggest to the Board of Selectmen and the entire committee is they ought to go out to the beach at high tide and look and see what parts of the beach are totally unavailable to walk on. You know, once you make the corner coming down to the west end, there is a very large segment from Gardeners all the way down to the property that is unavailable to walk on because the water is right up to the seawall. And most of the people know that. And most of the people that walk on the beach don't walk in the soft sand. They go to the hard sand to walk. So I think at this point in time, I think you people all agree that there really isn't a major problem at Goose Rock Beach.
Okay.
So Alan
Lori?
and David, so just a reminder, if you go to the participants section and you should be able to bring up your chat function and raise your hand, or you can let us know through the chat that you would like to talk. But I believe Jennifer Como would like to say something, David.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for your careful attention to this matter. I am a Kennebunkport resident, an author, singer, songwriter, engineer, and founder of a business that uses coaching and creativity in the outdoors, specifically beaches, meadows, and forests. I very much appreciate the difficulty of the decision you face. I don't envy you. Who'd ever want to close our beloved Goose Rock Beach? Yet these are unusual times. What I would like to suggest is that there are more risks in the ways in which we valued things that are vital to us, such as food, grocery stores, such as supporting small businesses, the beloved restaurants that we want to purchase takeout from. And some of those ways in which we are willing to risk exposing ourselves to a potential virus because we care for those things could also be said about nature. So I'm sure most of you know, there's been many, many books written, specifically The Nature Fix by Florence Williams, and most recently in a 2018 global data study involving 290 million people in 20 countries, including our own, that spending time outside has significant and wide-ranging health benefits, reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, increasing sleep duration, and where it regards to COVID susceptibility, much of the research talks about the organic plant-based compounds with antibacterial properties that actually increase our levels of white blood cells, helping us fight off infections and diseases. So imagine being outdoors not only supports our mental well-being, but our physical health and our immune system too. So I would hope that we could, and I support what most are saying here, that we could take a pause, recognize that there are far greater risks in some of the other things that are going on in this town, which I fully support. I love our grocery store. I thank the people profusely with tears in my eyes. I order takeout from our local small businesses. I'm also a small business, and part of my income comes from taking people into these beautiful areas that are actually medicine in some ways for us. So what I would hope is that we could create a more nuanced approach, and that's what I'm hearing this evening on this call, and that perhaps whether we not do something right away, but perhaps we can create distance monitors the way Gooch's used to have dog monitors or still has dog monitors. Create time slots in which the beach could be open. Perhaps strongly recommend, if not require, masks and gloves. So there's all kinds of ways in which we can allow for a both and I'm almost done, a both and, which is to both keep ourselves safe and limit our exposure and promote the physical and mental well-being of our community. We just have to value doing so. And I thank you all. I know this is difficult. I appreciate the attention. I will go mute now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public?
Yeah, Alan, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Dave James.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Alan. I'm not close to this whole thing, so I'm really not sure what it is you're trying to accomplish by closing the beach. Is it already so overcrowded that we are bordering on violating the social separation of individuals? Or I'm not sure what's going on. But one thought I do know my son-in-law, who often walks the beach at 6 o'clock in the morning with his dog, and there's not many people out there. Maybe something to think about is limiting access to the beach from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock when people from further away from Goose Rock's beach might come to walk the beach, but would allow time for those who actually live there in the Goose Rock's beach residential area to have access to the beach. But I wonder why it is that we're even trying to do this.
Well, we're trying to keep the beach open, Dave. We're trying to keep ahead of the game by somewhere along the line, if it becomes a problem, that we'll be able to, say, limit parking so there wouldn't be so many people on the beach. And if that didn't work, we'd have to do something else.
Well, I would expect that whatever is going on now is not going to go on for the next 6 to 8 months, I hope. Maybe doing something, leaving it open for the next 2 to 3 months, and then revisiting it, as other people have suggested, makes more sense.
Well, we're going to have to look at that, but I think we want to keep the beach open now. And if it becomes a problem, we're going to have to do something. And I don't really want to close the beach. I would like to see, and none of the select board wants to close the beach. I'd rather see something put into place where it would limit parking down there, so they'd have to get there first before the parking was filled up. So there wouldn't be so many people on the beach, is what I'm saying. And if that didn't work, we would have no other option, I don't think, but other than close the beach, because we don't want to have any problems down there. And like I say, none of us want to close the beach. We want it to stay open, but it has to be secure, and it has to be followed through, and we have to have something in place.
Alan?
Yes.
Bob Sherman, I think we're all trying to keep the beach open. I think, well, most of us seem to be, but I think that maintaining the social distance rules, people must realize that those apply to beach time also. We're not, we need to make sure that we're doing right practices, correct practices at the beach. Somehow we need to make that important.
That's correct. I agree. Yeah. Is there anybody else have any comments from the public?
Alan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm concerned that maybe we're being somewhat myopic. I know we're talking about personal inconvenience that walk the beach. We've got 275 confirmed cases of COVID-19 state. York County is the second area with the virus. We really do need to be proactive. We can't wait until there's a problem.
You're not coming in very good, Richard.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got 265 cases in Maine, 3 deaths. York County, the largest, the second largest number of viruses. Well, I've heard it all my life where I've been in a public position. We haven't had a problem. There hasn't been an accident in that intersection, although we know it's a dangerous intersection. Why should we do anything? And we're doing the same thing here. We can't wait until there is a problem. I'm for giving the manager the authority to close the beach, close Kings Highway for parking when it's absolutely necessary. But there has to be some criteria. It's not have overcrowding. I mean, that's why York closed their beach. They had the incidents of many people, and they said we can't have that. It's dangerous. We can't wait until it's dangerous. This virus just doesn't respect time, place. So to say we're going to keep it open and maybe just limit the parking, doesn't limit. There are lots of people in Goose Rocks who can just walk to the beach. They don't have to drive there. So we really have to be real. It is a pandemic, and it's here, and people are coming here, bringing it, whether they have a summer house here or they're just visitors, renters, what have you. It's in our county. It's in our state. We are responsible.
Hey, Ed.
Who is it? Pardon me. Who is this? What's your name? Okay. Sorry, Dave.
Hi there. Oh,
Hey, am I on? Karen Schlegel, I'm on?
Yes, you are.
All right, so my only concern is I always want to keep my Goose Rock Beach open for everybody. It should be, but in this time and this pandemic, whatever is happening, we are the only beach that is open in southern Maine. We do need to be careful of how many people are going to flood our beach. Not just the Goose Rocks residents, not just the out-of-state Goose Rocks vacation home owners. They should be coming here. It's everybody else because we are now one of the only beaches that are open. So I'm slightly concerned about that, and I still would like to hear Chief Sanford's opinion on, are we going to overflood our Goose Rock Beach because we are one of the only beaches open in southern Maine?
Chief, I guess you have a question.
That's really hard for me to predict, but again, we are limited in parking down there legally. Though, you know, the worst I can say is think of the best 4th of July, you know, last year and how busy it was. That's the potential that you could have down there at any given time. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic or not. I mean, you know, it's hard for me to predict if people are going to come up here or not. But again, if spaces are limited, you can limit the number of people that actually have access, in my opinion.
I have a question. Alan?
Yep, go ahead.
We seem to be discussing just Goose Rocks Beach. And it seems to be everybody thinks that a lot of people come to Goose Rocks Beach, and they do. But honestly, you should really be looking at Dock Square. You've got parking lots, you have a lot more people walking the sidewalks and parking cars in Dock Square than you do at Goose Rocks Beach.
Well, right now we're just talking about Goose Rocks Beach for tonight. We're not going to talk
you're
about
muted.
what. Okay.
Alan,
Yeah.
can I speak?
course you can speak.
All right. Pertaining to what, about closing the beach, and being proactive and all of that. I think what has happened when you think about it, a month ago, we weren't doing any of this. And then within a 4-week span, we are self-quarantining, we are self-distancing, we are, particular about where we walk and who we see and what, and all of this. So it's been over a period of time that this has happened. I still think I think we're okay to keep the beach open at this point. And this Jennifer, I forget it, Trudeau, Jennifer Como, she had an excellent point. If we force people not to go, or they can't go on the beach, they'll be walking on the sidewalks. They'll be closer to each other. I think we're better off as residents in our town to leave the beach open for as long as we can.
I agree.
So Alan, you have 3 people that have been waiting: Derek Weber, Paul Hogan, and then Mark Gallagher.
Okay. Who's been waiting the longest? Paul? Who? Derek Weber.
Thank you very much. How's everybody doing? Great. Well, there's all different opinions. It's been really helpful to listen, and a lot of points were made. I'll just make a couple really quick points. First, I'm on Kings Highway. We've been here for 92 years. Everybody loves Goose Rocks, of course. I guess the decision is whether the beach is getting closed. It doesn't sound like it's getting closed. I just want to make a couple points. One, if you look at the beach, high tide, low tide, it doesn't matter. I'm out there every day walking, never stopping. Everybody's respectful, and there's 3 miles long and a quarter of a mile deep. You compare that to Dock Square, supermarket aisles, anywhere where people can walk, and it's an order of magnitude larger area. It's outdoors. So right away, I think if you were to close a cave or a tunnel, that would be pretty clear. Look, it's a tight space. People are going to get congested. What we're talking about is it getting worse. And by worse, we mean all the spaces filled, everybody coming to the beach from the south or from wherever, and crowding the beach now like 4th of July. I don't think that's going to happen, but we have a mechanism, if I understand things and Chief Sanford and the team can enforce it, is parking. And I know some people have to drive here that are legitimate folks that can be at Goose Rock Beach because they're residents of Kennebunkport, but they don't live at the beach. I get that. But in any case, if you just eliminated the parking, you would eliminate everybody, most people coming in. There's some secret ways to come in, of course, whatever. Parking is the default, or do it right now if you can. And then my other point is we have a couple lines in the sand, no pun intended. First is Memorial. Second is 4th of July. Between now and Memorial, there's no renters. Nobody's renting to anybody, to my knowledge, really. I mean, maybe a couple, but that's the most. So it's how well can we do nationally and in the state of Maine and in York County between now and Memorial, and then do we slip past that to July 4th and get into really dangerous territory in terms of our community and the beach? My say is keep it open. Everybody knows how to do it on the beach that's a resident. People come in from elsewhere, ban their parking, and then we keep it down to whoever, as long as we're not violating some other set of rules and Chief Sanford can enforce them. That is my opinion. I thank you very much. I will go back on mute.
Thank you. All right, who's up next? Paul?
Yeah, hi. I agree with the last speaker, but I do worry a little bit about if we're the only beach open. So I would hope we would be creative and find a way to communicate that the beach is open to the people who are living in this town, whether they're renters or owners or in a hotel room, that they're welcome to walk the beach. I don't think there's any scientific evidence that I've seen, contrary to what John's suggesting, that people walking 50 feet apart on our big beach are causing a health risk to themselves or to anybody else. And I think, I think we have to think out of the box. I would not want next Sunday if we're the only beach. Obviously, there are other beaches open, Biddeford, Old Orchard Beach. We're not the only one open still. But there may be a need to communicate that we have limited our access to the beach to the residents for the time being under the circumstances. Residents being broadly interpreted.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Paul. Thank you. Anybody else? We're gonna.
Yeah, hey, Alan.
This is
Dave James again.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, okay. 2 comments. One, Charlie Sullivan. I live a block and a half away from Dock Square, and my wife and I walk every day, and there is no congestion of people anywhere around that. So wipe that off your agenda. Number 2, I agree with the comment that I think it was Derek Weber made. But one thing you might want to consider, rather than eliminating parking, limit parking to people that have Goose Rock Beach parking stickers.
Right, but a lot of people, and Ed made this point earlier, that a lot of people don't go down to the beach that live here in the summertime, but they go down there in the spring and the fall, and they don't buy a beach sticker. Like, I'm well aware of that. I mean, and I've also had 5 calls since yesterday asking us, please don't close the beach right now. And so when I talked to them a little bit about, well, what do you think about limiting parking if it gets a little tricky down there? And they said that would be a better idea than just closing the beach right up and forgetting it. So thanks,
Okay,
Dave.
I would buy that.
This is Mark Allier. I've been in the queue. So just before you close, I just wanted to make a couple observations. First of all, it sounds to me that people who have been monitoring this fairly closely have all kind of come to the conclusion that it hasn't been a problem as of yet. There was one incident with some teenagers who weren't adhering to social distancing, but yet, let's be honest, they could, if they weren't at Goose Rock Beach, they very well may be someplace else doing that anyway. The one thing that does concern me about the discussion around this issue is this the continuing characterization of out-of-towners or out-of-staters. And so I live in Kennebunk, but we have a home in Kennebunkport and Goose Rock Beach as well. There, in my estimation, there's no difference from me loading up 5 folks from my family to come over to Goose Rock Beach and walk the beach than somebody who comes from Rochester, New Hampshire, or from Western Massachusetts. The only concern from a health perspective, I would say, is that it's true if you come from a larger area where you may have greater exposure, but short of asking people for their driver's license and figuring out where they actually live, there's no way of actually monitoring this. So I just caution people from using that out-of-stater versus in-stater kind of language because health is your first wealth, but I don't want to place us in a situation where people are viewing us from the outside, particularly when our economy is based so much on tourism.
Thank you. I'm going to take a couple more comments from the public. After that, I think we're getting enough information where we might be able to move on a little bit. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to make a comment? Go ahead. Oh, nobody else has? Okay. Mike, you have a comment?
I'd like to say something, Alan. And if you want, I'll wait till the end and speak my piece again.
Well, Mike had his hand up, so first, but.
Okay.
Where do I raise my hand, Carol?
Hi, my name is Jim Laverrier, a resident of Kennebunkport. And I'm just curious, I'm not sure if it's the town manager's responsibility or the chief, but what's going to happen on May 31st with regard to enforcing parking permits? I realize not everybody bought one last year and so on, but that's when restrictions normally start. I understand you don't want to put staff at risk and issue 2020 permits. But what will happen on June 1st?
Lori, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Would you like to answer that question?
Right. If I had any idea what was going to happen on June 1st, I probably should be in Washington, but
you'd be very rich.
I think that, what would happen as of today is we would enforce the parking stickers, but what, the past few weeks have taught us is that life changes dramatically day to day. And so I can't begin to know what other measures we might decide to take between now and then.
I guess my point is, if you're going to enforce the parking stickers on June 1st, assuming things are okay, would you want to consider doing that sooner as a way to try to alleviate overcrowding now or in the next few weeks?
Part of the, when we do start to enforce those rules, we do have different staff levels, and we do hire in additional staff to assist with that. And so right now, we're a bit of a disadvantage, as well as the fact that we're really trying to limit staff, and that includes our public safety people's interactions with the public. And so whether or not this would be something that we would undertake in the same measure that we would in a normal summer, is a question.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Mike, you have a comment?
He's muted.
I would think that a prudent step would be to take the first step is to reduce the overall parking at Goose Rock's beach. I agree with the chief. I think that we could reduce, I don't mean eliminate cars out of state or anything, but simply reduce the number of parking spots that are available and then see how it goes. That's all. Now, I've been by there every day, and every parking space, even on that Sunday when it was real busy, wasn't taken.
Right.
So I unless it was somebody saw something different this weekend, I haven't seen it. So I would suggest that we go ahead and reduce the overall parking where it is. I don't know whether it's New Bedford Road and Dyke Road or whatever, but I think that's a good prudent step. And then I think after we do that, then we take a look at changing the regulations a little bit, the ordinance a little bit, so that if something happens that warrants it, that we have the authority to take action without endangering the public any further. That's the way I feel about it. I don't want to close it either, but I think we can restrict the access.
Okay, Mike, thanks. Ed, you had something you wanted to say? Add to it?
Well, I'd like to say that, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. I'm very impressed with the amount of people that we have here tonight, given that this may be the first time that many of you have used this platform. I've been taking time to read all the comments that I have up on the right side of my screen. And for the most part, people have made very good suggestions, and I won't read down through them. But what we have to realize is that we are operating in a whole new dynamic than we were a couple of weeks ago. And I think most of us understand that. But as far as the town goes, we are operating on ever limited resources. Most of our non-essential personnel are now working from home, and the police department is being stretched. We will, both as a nation and as a state and as a community, continue to be stretched as we move through this pandemic. So when we come to a solution on Goose Rock's beach, it needs to be simple. We don't have we don't have the staff to have people down there checking beach permits, in my opinion, or seeing if people are 6 feet or 9 feet away from each other or whatever. The beach needs to be open or it needs to be closed. And, that is the simple fact of the matter. We can argue about it all night long, but at the end of the day, that's what we can enforce.
Thanks, Ed. Okay,
Alan, I think Bob Sherman wanted to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Two quick things. I agree with Mike with respect to cutting the number of parking spaces in the interim period. Dyke Road, New Bedford Road would be the places I'd suggest we do it. It doesn't really impact much of beach use because the people who want to use the beach will be parked along Kings Highway. I also think we should commit to another meeting sometime, let's use mid-May as a place, to take what we've learned, what's happening then, where the status is, because you will be in the sticker business here pretty soon, and we need to make sure that we're cohesive in our game plan for how we're going to proceed for the summer.
Thanks, Bob. I'm going to take one more public comment, and then we're going to move on. Is there anybody out there from the public that would like to make a comment?
I'm not public.
Nobody has their hand up?
No.
I'm not.
I think Joanne wants to talk.
Oh, Joanne?
I would like to support, certainly meeting again, but I think waiting till mid-May, the rapid changes with this virus doesn't let us wait a month before we re-examine this. If we can leave the beach open now, limit the parking spaces and put in place steps to gradually close it off, God forbid if we have to, but I don't think we can wait a month or 2 months or 3 months for this.
I agree.
The pace of it is just changing too rapidly. I live just north of Boston and we're a mess.
Okay,
So I don't want to see that happening to me. So I don't want to, I don't want to close it now.
Richard?
But I also don't want to wait too long.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alan?
Yeah.
Going along with those comments, I mean, we got this, or Lori got this meeting together in what, 3 days, 2 days?
Right.
If we all know to be available next Monday night, let's leave the beach open the way it is for a week. Let's meet again after next weekend. If we feel like we want to limit the parking, then we can limit the parking. If we feel like we really need to close the beach, we can close the beach.
I think we limit the parking now.
Well, like you said, Mike, though, you said at no time prior to this has
Yeah, I know,
all
but you
parking
know,
been taken.
But you know what? Just a couple of months ago, I heard somebody say, we've only got 15 cases and it's going to go away next week. And I think that that would be very short-sighted if we didn't do something.
Well, taking away 10 parking places isn't going to do it.
And it's getting warmer, the weather's getting better.
Yes, but if we take this, Mike, on a week-by-week basis,
No,
April's not your
I
best
think
month
we got to
for
do
weather.
something now. I disagree.
Okay.
Richard?
Yeah, look, I get the selectmen are not going to vote to close the beach now, but we have two regulations in front of us that were drawn up by the town attorney. One of the regulations gives the town manager and the chair of the selectmen committee the authority to close the beach or to limit parking if they see that there's an emergency. Let's suppose next Sunday or Saturday, it is a sunny day and the beach is crowded and we see that there is a problem. Waiting till Monday night doesn't do it. So let's at least tonight authorize the manager and the chair of the beach, the Board of Selectmen, to have the authority to do what is necessary if there is a problem. I don't want to wait until we see there is a problem. Let's do something beforehand.
Thanks, Richard. We're still have the public comment section. So if there's one more person that'd like to make a comment from the public, now's the time because we're going to move on.
I just have a comment to make, and I think you guys are all doing everyone is doing a phenomenal job, and thank you to both the select board and to the beach advisory committee. I would just say, this is Mark Gallagher. I would just say this to Mr. Driver's comment. Flexibility and adaptation is going to be incredibly important because we are in uncharted territory. I would say this, I would feel very uncomfortable if a decision was made about closing the beach without a public hearing of some sort. Being it obviously in this instance, it would have to be virtual, and I fully understand that. And it can be done in a modern world with technology in a very short time frame. But making a unilateral decision to close a beach without public input before that final decision is made, I think would certainly not be a wise idea.
Thank you. Okay, Richard, do you why don't we move along, and do you have a member that would like to make a motion or a recommendation?
Well,
So can we just make sure, Dave, that the beach committee members are unmuted because it's time for their deliberation? I see that Jim Mulvihill is muted.
Jennifer's, oh, okay.
Yes, yes, you have. Thank you.
So is there anyone on the Beach Advisory Committee who would like to make a motion? I would hope that someone would move to adopt the emergency regulation that gives the town manager authority to act in an emergency to do what is necessary to protect the public.
Richard, I would make that motion to give the town manager and the chairman of the selectmen the authority to close the beach in an emergency situation if things get out of control before anyone else can get there.
Joanne Weston made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
The second, John Dykstra.
Yep, and Kate, not that you need to.
All right. Any discussion?
Yes, Jim Mulvihill. I think there ought to be consideration for a date, as someone suggested earlier, when we might meet again, regardless of what's happening, to reevaluate what we're doing and where we're going. I don't know whether that date is the Monday after Easter, that will be April 13th, or
Jim,
I think it should be before the end of April. That's for darn sure.
Jim, the question is the motion that's on the floor. We can talk about another meeting after we vote on this motion.
I'm looking to amend the motion.
And
Can we not make a second motion, Jim? Can we not pass this one and then you can volunteer a second motion?
Yeah, I don't really care, but I mean, I think we all need to have a commitment. The second motion is fine, an amendation is fine, whatever is best for everybody.
Okay, anybody else?
We have to have a commitment to meet again.
Anybody else have a comment on the motion?
Okay, wait a minute, just a quick question. The motion is, as Joanne described it, essentially recommending that the selectmen adopt the emergency regulations that Lori distributed around, which would give the town manager, in consultation with the chair of the Board of Selectmen, the authority to close the beach if they deemed it necessary because of an emergency situation, without addressing Jim's issue, and that will be addressed separately. Am I right that the motion is as originally proposed?
That's the motion, Kate.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Give me the yays and nays, please. Joanne?
Yes.
Kate Bauer-Burke? Jim Mulvihill?
No.
Bob Sherman?
Yes.
Sheila Matthews Bull? Sheila?
Sheila, are you there?
I think their screen's frozen.
Sheila might not be unmuted. I don't know what happened to Sheila.
No, I think her screen's frozen. Her picture's not moving.
John Dykstra?
Yes.
Jennifer Wasserman?
Yes.
Alrighty, we have one no and one not voting. 6 in favor. The motion.
Are you gonna vote, Richard?
Yes. Okay. And I vote yes.
Okay. So,
That leaks.
Deb.
6.
I think it still passes, doesn't it, Richard? I think we have enough to pass.
It is
Moved.
6 in favor, 1 against, and 1 not voting.
Okay.
You had a motion?
Oh, wait.
Your motion passes.
Yes.
Okay.
Jim Mulvihill, you had a motion?
Yes, I suggest that we establish another meeting of this sort, of this group, no later than April 17th. because I think, as someone said earlier, this thing may still be boiling up from New York, from Boston, into Maine more than we think. And I think they're gonna, and I also think that we need to be especially alert and responsible. This is not the same, this is a different kind of virus than we've had in the past, and I have just a little bit of background in this area, so.
I would support a meeting, but I would move it closer. The 17th is more than 2 weeks away, and that's a long time. Let's look at where we were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Move it up.
that's fine with me. That's fine with me. I just didn't wanna, that's fine with me.
I would suggest
Didn't
2
want
weeks from today, 13th.
I would accept that amendment.
Your motion.
Quick question. Wait a minute, Richard. Quick question on that. So, and I totally agree with having another meeting, but that would be whether or not, or even in the instance that in the interim, if assuming that the Board of Selectmen adopts the emergency regulation that we just approved or recommended to them, that even if something has been activated under that, we're still looking at, of course, having this meeting.
I think that.
Yes.
I think we should. If nothing else, it would reaffirm what Alan and Lori might or might not do, and it'll give us a chance to examine what's happening.
Okay. Makes sense to me.
The motion is to have a meeting, a joint meeting on April 13th, Monday, April 13th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, Joanne Guston seconded it. Any discussion? All right, let me poll the committee. Joanne?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bob Sherman?
Yes.
Sheila Matthews Bull? John Dykstra?
Yes.
Jennifer Wasserman?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's 7 in favor. The motion passes.
Okay, great.
Alan, there are 2 recommendations from the Beach Advisory Committee. One is that we convene this meeting again in 2 weeks. And the other is that the Board of Selectmen adopt the resolution drafted by gives the manager authority, manager with the chair of the Board of Selectmen authority to take whatever action is necessary in an emergent situation, whether it be parking or closing the beach.
Okay, thank you. So your part is finished, and so you guys could go ahead and adjourn if you'd like.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep it open.
Thank you.
We can
Thank you.
adjourn after the Board of Selectmen have finished.
What's that?
I didn't hear what you said.
I don't think we should adjourn until the Board of Selectmen have finished their discussion.
Okay, it's up to you.
I'm going to leave the meeting.
So, does anybody have any more comments from the Board of Selectmen before we try to take an action on all this? Mike?
No.
Nope. Ed?
No, I've spoken my piece.
Okay, Pat?
No comment.
Would you unmute Sheila?
Sheila, you're muted. Can you unmute your phone? Oh.
Okay, there it is.
There you go, Sheila.
Okay, my phone froze and I'm just getting back on.
Okay, let me tell you where we're at.
Thank you.
The Beach Advisory Committee voted to go ahead and pass, to go ahead and let the town manager and the chair decide if and when we have to take some action to limit parking or close the beach. And that was the first motion, and it passed. And the second, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And the second one was they would like to have another meeting but on April 13th to see where we're at.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So do you have anything else you want to add to this, Sheila? I've asked everybody else on the Board of Selectmen, and you just came back online. So is there anybody out there that would like to make a motion on our actions, for an action?
I would like to make a motion that we leave the beach open and take steps as needed to ensure the safety of our beaches and our residents.
Okay, is there a second? Anybody want a second Sheila's motion?
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I do. I'd like to make a motion that we restrict the parking some way immediately, and then continue on. Let the chair and the town manager make any decision if the need arises.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second Sheila's motion.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Any more discussion?
So I have a question on Sheila's motion. What action are we taking? Because the emergency regulation that Amy drafted today, you would need to be authorizing that, and you should probably give people an idea of what that says, since we just got it today. Or are we taking another step?
I'm sorry.
I'm looking for clarity.
Yeah. I think maybe our first motion should be to agree that Lori and the chair be allowed to,
Take appropriate action.
have to do whatever it is, take action as needed.
Well, does that include restricting traffic?
It's whatever.
No,
not traffic, excuse me, parking. Restricting.
Not in mine. I don't want to restrict yet.
No, I think that.
I understand what you're saying. That's you're looking for a step action, like you're going to go ahead and if it does.
Keep it open, and then the first step would be to limit parking, and then the second step might be to limit all parking, and then the third step might be to close the beach totally.
All right.
We can decide that.
All right. So is that your motion?
No, Sheila. Alan and Lori are going to decide that. We are not. And normally I wouldn't second this, but this is not normal times. So we're going to give Lori and Alan, make sure you understand what you're saying here, complete authority to do with the beach as they choose, not as the five of us choose. And normally I wouldn't go with this, but this isn't normal times.
I agree with Ed.
I also agree with Ed.
Yeah, and that's fine with me. I just don't want to take action on closing anything yet.
So
if the motion is simply to let Lori and the chair have the say, that's fine with me.
So are you guys motioning to adopt the emergency regulations that Amy drafted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I still second Sheila's motion.
Any more comment from the board?
So Alan, can I just read this quickly for the public so they know what's in this regulation?
Absolutely.
So it says, emergency regulations governing temporary closure of Goose Rock's beach during COVID-19 pandemic. Pursuant to sections 4D and 5 of the Beach Use Ordinance for Goose Rock's Beach, the Town of Kennebunkport Board of Selectmen hereby finds and orders the following. And it has a lot of whereases. And the whereases talk about the governor declaring a civil state of emergency, that COVID-19 is a communicable disease, that there have been many deaths related to it, that the President of the United States and Center for Disease Control have asked for social distancing, that this governor prohibited social gatherings of more than 10 people and has closed all restaurants and bars, that then she came out and closed non-essential businesses, that we are a coastal community in York County and we get a lot of visitors, and that the towns surrounding us have taken action, and that COVID-19 threatens the public health and safety, and Goose Rock's Beach is a popular destination for the public, and that several beaches around us have closed. So then it says, whereas the Board of Selectmen has consulted with the Beach Advisory Committee pursuant to Section 4D of the Beach Use Ordinance regarding adoption of emergency regulations governing Goose Rock's Beach during the state of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas during the state of emergency, the Board of Selectmen believe that the town manager, in consultation with the chair of the Board of Selectmen, requires the authority to expeditiously promulgate regulations and take emergency measures on and in the vicinity of Goose Rock's Beach to prevent members of the public from congregating in a manner that will risk further community spread of COVID-19, and to otherwise protect public health, safety, and welfare, and to preserve critical resources within this area of town. Now, therefore, pursuant to the aforesaid authority and recitals, which are incorporated herein by reference, the Board of Selectmen hereby promulgates the following emergency regulations. Number 1, the town manager, in consultation with the chair of the Board of Selectmen, shall be responsible for adopting orders and rules governing use of and access to Goose Rock's Beach to preserve the safety, health, and welfare of its citizens, including, but not limited to, the following. Adoption of an order closing all or a portion of Goose Rock's Beach and any rights of way that provide access to the public to members of the public. B, adoption of traffic and parking rules in the vicinity of Goose Rock's Beach, including but not limited to rules or restricting the number and location of parking spaces designated for access to the beach, rules governing beach permit parking, and rules prohibiting or restricting the movement of vehicles. And adoption of an order or rules deemed necessary to protect life and property and to preserve critical resources in the vicinity of Goose Rock's Beach during the state of emergency. And then it says, these emergency regulations and the orders and rules adopted hereunder shall remain in effect until the termination of the state of emergency by the governor of Maine, unless further extended by express adoption of an ordinance or law.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay. Sheila made the first motion and Ed
You
seconded
know
it.
what, Alan? My motion was not to close Goose Rock's Beach. This motion should be to accept this policy. Correct, Laurie?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Then I will make a motion that we accept the emergency regulations that were given to us by our lawyer and by Laurie, that we accept them tonight.
So this is basically the same motion that you said before, correct?
No, my
No?
before one was, it included the closing of the beach. This doesn't, whatever she read is what we should adopt. What she read.
Okay. So Ed, do I have a second on Sheila's new motion?
Yes.
Okay. So Sheila made the motion, Ed seconded it. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Wait,
a minute.
I've had my hand up.
It's too late. We have Sheila, what's your vote?
I for me.
Pat?
I vote for the emergency regulations.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's 5, it passes.
Okay, can I also make a motion, just like the Goose Rock Beach Committee did, that we meet again I would rather us meet in 1 week, but if they said 2 weeks, then
We can always have an emergency meeting, Sheila.
yeah, I would rather meet in a week, like a week from tonight, and
Can I
see where
ask
we
you-
stand.
Sheila?
Hey,
can I
Alan?
say let's
Hang on a
meet
minute.
In
Alan, this is Paul
weeks as
Hogan.
they did.
Paul, you're going to have to hold on for just a second, please.
But Alan, you've just had a vote without any public input on the Board of Selectmen's motion. So there has to be, under the law, an opportunity for the public to weigh in. Thank you.
Sheila, what were you saying?
I'm saying that I would like to see us meet in another week and not wait 2 weeks. Look at how many changes that have taken place in such a short period of time. I think even if we don't meet with the beach, even if it's just the 5 of us,
How about we do
just
that,
to see
Sheila?
where we stand.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen reconvenes at 6 o'clock. Whatever next Monday is, the
First,
6th.
Yep.
6th. And then we'll reconvene in 2 weeks. And if the folks from the community or the Goose Rock Beach want to follow along, they can, but it will be our meeting.
Okay, I have a first for Sheila,
Second.
second from Ed. Any
Yep.
more discussion?
Nope,
Mike?
it's good. It's good.
Okay.
Is there an opportunity for public discussion?
Yes, go for it, Paul.
Yeah, my only point is I'm really confused as to why we are dealing only with Goose Rock's Beach when we have Colony Beach in the same town.
Because the
And
agenda says we're dealing with Goose Rock's Beach right now. We will get to the other beaches. Thank you, Paul.
Okay. So we have a first and a second. Sheila, what's your vote?
Okay, my motion is.
No,
that-
I have your motion, but what is your, what, aye and nay?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Affirmative.
Mike?
Aye.
And I vote aye also. It passes 5-0. Okay, now, let's go on to other business. Is there any selectman that has any other business on this subject of other beaches or whatever?
I'll make a comment and say that whatever we decide to do at Goose Rock's Beach, we should also do at Colony Beach.
Okay.
I think we owe Paul a little bit of a, Laurie, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the reasons why we had to do the Goose Rock's Beach separate was because of the agreement. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
correct.
so I think we owed Paul a better answer, that's all.
And we also said at the beginning of the meeting, this was brought up at the very beginning, why we were only talking about Goose Rock's Beach. So my
I know, but at the beginning,
being so curt with you, but I thought you had heard that. Yeah.
At the beginning, Ed, the meeting was really garbled. There was a lot of confusion, yeah.
So we're talking about Colony Beach now, and Sheila made a good point and a good comment. Was that a motion?
No, just a comment.
Just a comment. Okay. Any more comments?
I would just
about Colony Beach.
Respectfully, Sheila, because they're completely different beaches. I mean, Colony's a postage stamp in comparison to Goose Rock's Beach. And if there was an argument to be made for closing a beach, I would suggest that we were to, not a motion. This is just my thoughts, that I would be more inclined to close Colony Beach. But at this point, I would be happy if we just locked the gate. People can walk down there and go on it if they like. But because if all the parking spots were filled down there, we would reach a much higher saturation level than we would with the same amount of people on Goose Rock's Beach.
What about you, Mike? Do you have any comments about Colony Beach?
Colony Beach is a very small, very intimate beach, but I've been by it this week. It's the same condition as Goose Rock's Beach. So I would say whatever we do with Goose Rock's Beach, we do with Colony Beach. There were a lot of cars there, but not a lot of people. I mean, I haven't seen it. So whether we close it or do the same we do with Goose Rock's Beach is, to me, it's up to the group, up to you two.
How about Pat?
Yeah, Colony Beach certainly should be included in the general beach shutdown or limited, whatever you call it. But, isn't Colony Beach also a location where they launch boats?
No.
No.
They don't do that. Okay.
No.
I want to make sure we weren't shutting off.
That's government wharf.
No, they don't launch boats at Government Wharf either. There's no public boat launch.
No public boats. No public boats.
So,
okay. I
guys,
think going back to Colony Beach, it's very simple. You put a chain across the entrance.
Yeah, I like that idea, Pat. But
so, Sheila, you made the first comment. Do you want to make a motion?
Okay, I guess my motion would be that we handle Colony Beach in the same, handle Colony Beach along with Goose Rock's Beach, that whatever we decide for one beach, we'll go for the other.
Okay. That's your motion. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Mike seconds it.
Thank you, Mike.
I would like to make a comment vote on this. What I would suggest is we create another document similar to the one that exactly as Lori read, but change the Goose Rocks to Colony Beach so that, again, we would leave the decision to Alan and Lori to close it. So you could, in theory, leave one open and close the other. But if they chose to close both of them, that would meet our legal criteria.
I think that's what Sheila said.
No, I think what Sheila said was what we did at one, we would do at the other. And that may or may not.
Okay. All right. I gotcha.
And we don't, because it's a parking lot and it doesn't involve a street like at Kings Highway, we don't need that same level of regulation for Colony because we do close the parking lot now at certain times. And so we could do that.
Well, then I would say that instead of having a document, we just give Alan and Lori the authority to close the gate.
So we close, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you close that gate you close the gate in the summertime? Do you do it in the spring, in the evening? Isn't it, they close the beach at a certain time?
We normally don't do it until the summer gets going. Then we close it at night to keep out people from parking overnight.
Okay.
And then we close it for the 4th of July preparations. But folks want to understand that if we close that beach to cars, they're just going to park on Ocean Ave. So
exactly.
It's just my two thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. So I have a first and a second, and is there any more public comment or any more comments from anybody?
I actually like Ed's comment better, and that's maybe we should handle each beach differently.
Okay.
So I think it gives us more flexibility, Sheila. And closing both of them in the end. Let's hope we don't have to do that, but at least it gives us the option to do one, because if we closed Goose Rocks, worst case scenario, everybody would end up not everybody, but a lot more.
Sure.
It can't take the same amount of pressure that Goose Rocks Beach can.
Mike, what do you think?
I thought your motion was when you mentioned the same as Goose Rocks was the same agreement with the chairman and the town manager making the decision. That's what I thought you meant.
No, I think that's what I said. I think what Sheila meant was whatever they decided at Goose Rocks would happen at Colony. I don't mean to speak for you, Sheila, but that was my interpretation.
Yeah.
Right. That is what I meant, but I like your suggestion better. And that's to let Lori and Alan handle each beach separately and do what they feel is right for each beach.
So you're changing your motion, correct?
Yes, I am.
That's
Okay.
better. It's better.
Okay. Ed, did you second
I
that?
second- Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we're going to take a roll call on this. Ed,
Agree.
Pat,
Agree.
Mike,
Agree.
Sheila,
Agreed?
and I agree also. That's 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Wait a minute.
Hang on a minute. You can't
Wait a
do that yet. Hang on a second. Lori, you must have some stuff to add.
One item is if I can go back to Goose Rock's Beach for a minute. So I understand you passed the regulation that gives Ellen and I the ability to make decisions. But I heard differing opinions on the closing of some of the public parking spots now versus waiting on that. And I thought, while I have you all here, it might be good to start off on the same page as to whether the board is looking to close some of those spots now or you want to wait.
I would rather wait.
And I'd rather go now.
I would rather wait and see.
I would rather, if we're talking, I don't know who we're asking. Am I speaking as a
No,
beach
this is the
advisory?
select board only.
This is only select board. Thank
Yes.
you. Okay.
Pat,
I think we're making a mistake if we wait, that's all. I just think that it's that big of a problem, not for the beach, but for people's health. I just think it's the wrong message.
I agree with you, Mike, but at that point, we might as well just close the whole beach. And I don't want to open this all up for discussion again. I think we've had a very thorough and thoughtful conversation this evening.
I think that in my opinion, that the doing something sends a message.
We are doing something.
No, we're not.
Sure we
Not until a decision is made. I'm saying we could make a decision sooner than later, that's all.
Okay.
I agree with your line of thought, Mike. I just don't agree with the action. But you are correct that if we did something, we haven't done anything. Mike is correct.
So let me just offer that it takes staff a while to get ready to close areas and to make sure we have the materials and the signage. And so it's not something you can tell me and then the next day I'll be ready to do it. So some parking spots are like on New Biddeford Road and Dyke Road. And would we at least be looking to put signage up to close those spots?
Yeah.
I haven't heard. Go ahead.
Can we, are we at least willing to look at the New Biddeford Road and Dyke Road parking spots for this time and leave Kings Highway open? I mean, that to me would be a first step. And I think Chief Sanford wants to say something.
Chief?
Yeah, I just want folks to realize there's a lot of folks here that, everybody talks about social distancing. And currently, as things are, the governor is making a suggestion. And right now, the police department has no way to enforce social distancing. It's a recommendation, but I don't want people to have that false expectation that I can go out there and make people do this. It's a recommendation. And people need to really realize that the emergency crews in town, to include the police department, are very limited on the personal protection equipment that we have currently in town. And we're in a really tough spot as far as trying to protect employees. So just make sure that whatever we do, we're able to do it. And, it's not just a wish list, because I can't make promises to folks that aren't legally justified. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Pat yet. I'd like to hear something from Pat.
Right, okay. I think closing down parking on, New Bedford Road and the other road is appropriate. It sends a signal. And you have the authority, or we have given the authority, Laurie and you, to do more if necessary, whenever you need it. So if we send this signal, it should start to make an impression on people. So I vote for that.
So all of you are in favor of closing the New Biddeford Road only, is that correct?
No.
And Dyke Road.
Ultimately, this is now Alan, this is your decision and Laurie's decision. It's no longer my decision, Pat's decision, Sheila's decision.
That's right. That's
This
right.
is your decision. So I think we all spoke, and we could go around and around again all night. And you know how much I hate long meetings. So we've asked you to do it, and this is why you make the extra $200 a year. The rest of us.
I can think of easier ways of making $200.
I can too, and I'm glad you're chairman and not myself tonight.
So, are you happy with what they just said, Laura? Laurie?
So I'm going to give up on that issue.
So how about if we talk about it tomorrow?
Okay, and so then the only other item is, I did send around this afternoon some traffic and parking control ordinance regulations. And so Amy had suggested that you would want to add a new paragraph on the end of section 1, which is unlawful parking, which would allow you to put in emergency regulations to restrict parking in an area of town because of an emergency. And so currently that's not in the regulation. And so when we talk about some of these other areas of town that could be impacted in the long term, that might be a regulation you want on the books. That is something the selectmen have the authority, but we have to advertise it in the paper for 7 days. And then you would take it up at a meeting. So would you like me to put that on a future agenda and advertise that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
What's the rest of the board think? Is that okay with you guys?
I certainly think we should discuss it and put it out there so we can have a discussion because, again, we may need some of these tools in our toolbox.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Pat?
I think that's the last email that we got this afternoon, correct? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm in agreement with that, but if we want to have a discussion, I don't mind having a discussion. I'm always up for a discussion.
So we can't vote on this tonight, correct? We have to have public input first. Okay.
But I think Ed's right. Maybe we should discuss it.
At the next meeting.
Yes. Yeah. I believe, Mike, we can discuss and have a vote on it at our next meeting. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Laurie? I would like to hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
The first and a
Wait a
second.
minute, Alan, before we adjourn, I believe Richard has to adjourn the Goose Rock Beach Advisory Committee.
Oh, it's all right. Richard didn't do that. Go for it, Richard.
Those of us that are still here.
Do you have a quorum? We can't hear you, Richard.
I think he needs to be unmuted.
Yeah, You're all set.
David? Can I have a motion to adjourn the Beach Advisory Committee?
John Dykstra, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Joanne seconds.
Somebody unmute me, thank you.
Joanne?
Second.
Kate?
Aye.
Jim?
I'm in favor.
Bob?
Wait a minute. I agree, but someone would look at the Cape Porpoise Pier as well.
Bob Sherman? Sheila?
Yep.
John Dykstra?
Yo, night all.
Good night.
Good night, John.
I want to thank every one of you people for showing up virtually tonight. It was a really good meeting.
It's worked incredibly well.
Yes.
And so we,
people.
you guys,
Thank you, Chief.
So
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I have a first and a second to close this meeting.
Aye.
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 Ed?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute. Mike?
I said aye.
Okay. Pat?
Aye.
Sheila?
Aye.
And Alan says aye. Thank you guys very much. We had a great time.
Good night, all.
Chief.
Good night.
Good night.
Great
Good night.
stuff.